Hey man, today's video, here we are celebrating the 40th anniversary of the release of probably the greatest album of all time. I mean, you got Zeppelin 1, you got some great albums out there, but Van Halen 1, man, you know, Eddie Van Halen, the whole Brown sound, the way he reinvented the electric guitar. It was an incredible album. Michael Anthony, great bass player. The whole story about Van Halen, you know, growing up in the 80s, late 70s, they were a great band. And you'd be at, you know, we used to have house parties back in the day. And if you were at a house party, you had your beer going on, maybe there was a lot of girls walking around and stuff. If there was a Van Halen song playing at that party, that made it the ultimate party right there. And that's what I remember about cool old house parties. And if Van Halen, I'm telling you, if they were playing in the background, that was a great party. The way this album starts, real quick, it's funny how on vocals they say Dave Roth. So he hadn't even gotten into that big David Lee Roth persona that he worked himself into. Awesome artwork on the album, but just I remember my older brother influenced me when it came to music. He's 3 years older than I am. And so I remember him bringing home, you know, the King Crimson albums, the Black Sabbath albums, you know, of course the Dark Side of the Moon, the Pink Floyd albums. But this one, to me, felt like my generation. And my older brother, he wasn't so into it. And I could never understand that. And so we would, you know, back in the day, you know, there were areas where we could cruise down Main Street. And on Saturday nights, we'd go cruise. He had an old 1978 Pontiac Grand Prix, which was kind of a cool car back then. But we'd go cruise. And he'd say, hey man, and of course, you'd always listen to your car stereos, just blasting. And especially you'd have your windows all the way down, you'd cruise up and down the streets, everybody would park in their hot rods. And my brother would always put on like something by like Kraftwerk or something like that. And once in a while, I'm like, Ron, come on man, let's hear that Van Halen album. And that's again, man, that's when the party came to life for me, when you had the Van Halen going on. I loved Dave's lyric content. He would sing about meeting girls, you know. He would sing about, you know, having a good time. And it was a band, the lyrics inspired men my age to just have a good time and to just party. And they really were the innovators of the whole party band thing. And it was a great party. I saw 1980 Invasion. I probably saw them about 5 times in the early days, down at the Coliseum in Phoenix, Arizona. Remember one time I went down to, they were staying at the Hyatt Regency after the show. We went from, you know, the Coliseum where we saw the show. We went down to the Hyatt in downtown Phoenix, and there was all these limos. They all had their own limo, and there was all these people all piled around everywhere. But we parked and we got out and we walked up. And when we got to the front door of the place, Roth was up. They had like 2 sets of doors. Roth was already in the front door, and he had a big crowd around him. And I never saw Eddie or Alex walk in, but I saw Michael Anthony. And Michael came walking in, and he had a bottle of Jack Daniels in his left hand. And there was a line of people, but I shook his hand. So his right hand, he was shaking hands, but he had a bottle of Jack in his left hand. So that was always cool. And I remember being with this girl at that concert. And she talked a big game, but when it was right to the point where, hey, you got a chance to go meet Roth, and she kind of chickened out, but it's okay. But yeah, back to the music. The first song, "Running with the Devil," great tune. It's not listed in the order of the album on the back here. the songs are listed differently. But of course the album starts off with that horn, and they slowed the tape down. And then, you know, of course there was the bass guitar, boom, 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 and you hear the little, you know, and it kicks in. And so right from the start, great song. Of course the guitar work, the way that Eddie's first 2 albums, the way that Eddie's guitar was all the way over in the left channel, and all you would hear was the reverb coming out of the right side of the stereo. So you heard that faint little reverb tone of his guitar coming out of the right side. And I thought that was a great way to record that. Because you could hear just that. But then when he would do an overdub, about half of the tunes, he would overdub little guitar solos. And I can't play any of this kind of stuff. But he would overdub the guitar solos. And me and my brother, we had a little tiny piezo tweeter that we actually set up on the dashboard of his car. And when you'd kick into the Running with the Devil, the guitar solo in that, it would come screaming out of that little piezo pickup, little piezo speaker that we had up on the dash. And I just thought his leads were incredible. You could hum along with his leads. There's some guys that are just shredding all over the place, but if you can't hum, in my opinion, if you can't really hum the guitar solo, you know, it's just kind of a lot of notes. So, awesome song, Running with the Devil. The magic of the song also was in the background vocals. A lot of times, Roth, he was kind of like the MC of the party. He wasn't necessarily this great singer, although he had soul to him. He had a ton of charisma. The girls either loved him or hate him. In my opinion, I remember dating you know, 16, 18 years ago, I was dating a girl, and she was a punk rock girl, hardcore punk rock girl. And in a lot of ways, she was super cool because she introduced me to a lot of the music that I missed out on. You know, I missed out on the whole punk thing back in the day because I was so wound up with Van Halen and Whitesnake and Queensryche and all that 80s hair metal stuff that I missed out on the punk. But I remember being with her, and she would, I remember hearing Beautiful Girls on the radio, and they're singing, well, you know, oh yeah, beautiful girls, and he's like, set yourself on down. And she literally reached over and turned the radio off. She goes, I can't stand that. So it was just the pompous arrogance of David Lee Roth that really turned her off. She literally hated it. So it was kind of, you either love him or you hate him. And then as his career went on, you know, we all loved him very early on. We were very saddened when he left the band. But the new Eat 'Em and Smile, the solo stuff was fun. But, you know, it wasn't the real thing. And then the Sammy Hagar Van Halen stuff was fun at the same time, too. But the diehard, you know, that became Van Hagar. For the diehard David Lee Roth fans, it wasn't even nearly as good. Okay, and then of course you got right out of Running with the Devil. Track 2 is Eruption. It starts off, what a great idea for a song. It's pretty much, okay, Eddie's like, okay guys, give me a big open A chord, and I'm just going to solo for like 30 seconds. And then give me the, and I'm just going to solo in D for another, you know. It turned out great. People were like, that, I remember hearing people say, dude, the whole part where Eddie's doing this kind of thing, that whole thing almost sounded mechanical. And I remember being in high school, and I went to high school in Columbus, Ohio. And we had open windows, and we had our windows open, and some guy in his car came slowly cruising along the front of the high school, and you could hear Eruption just ripping through his car. And I was sitting in class going, yeah, this is so cool. And my teacher, he was an older guy, and he walked over to the window and he looked out the window and he like got a notepad out and he like wrote this kid's, yeah, he wrote the license plate number down. And I'm like, man, that's such a cool song. Let him blare that. It made my day hearing the Van Halen song right there. And so Eruption, man, mind-blowing. People couldn't figure out how he was doing that. And when he first started doing that, when they first came out, everybody was convinced, hey, man, this is the greatest guitar player that is out there. And then for some reason, about 10 years later, people started in on the, oh, well, Eddie Van Halen's not the greatest out there. There's all these guys that are even better. And I remember going and seeing Yngwie. Talus opened up for Yngwie. And Yngwie played a ton of notes. But it was classical music. It wasn't that good party music that we enjoyed. Although, Yngwie was awesome. George Lynch was totally awesome, his guitar playing. Just, I mean, on a scale from 1 to 10, Eddie's a 10. George Lynch on some of those albums was a close 9.5, I have to be honest with you. And then, okay, you got the Kinks cover. Van Halen loved doing cover songs. I'm okay with that. I can dig a couple of the cover songs. I know the Diver Down album was only 27 minutes long, had a lot of cover tunes, but I'm okay with that. But every song on this album I could listen all the way through. Great album. Got, Roth more or less doing, again, I'm telling you, he felt like the MC of the party. And then Eddie and Michael Anthony would sing. And Michael Anthony's very powerful falsetto background vocals. I don't know if he was singing falsetto or what. But he had those high background vocals. And they really honestly were magical. When you heard Running with the Devil, or you heard Ain't Talking About Love, or all those great harmony vocals. And they recorded their new album, A Different Kind of Truth. And nothing against Wolfie. He sings great. He plays awesome bass guitar. I would jam with him every day. I love Wolfie. Great part of the family. He didn't have the magic that Michael Anthony had in those background vocals. The album is great. When that album came out, I went over to Zia Records, bought that thing brand new the day it came out, shoved it in the CD player, my truck, and I basically forced myself to listen to it. The singer in the band that I was in at the time, we heard Tattoo on the radio. And he was like, I don't know. But I was like, Dave did a lot of, I think what Dave kind of, I don't want to say messed up, but I think he threw too much lyric content on the album. He's spitting out so many words that you couldn't keep up. And I remember the big hits where it was more simplified, and he was, I live my life like there's no tomorrow, and you could hear that. On the new album, This Different Kind of Truth, he threw so much lyric content in there. And then even with the song Tattoo, it was a nice, slow Van Halen groove, but then he would do the spoken word part that you couldn't really hear what he was saying. And I think Dave tried way too much lyric content, and that's what he's into. And if you read those lyrics, you're like, wow, that's a lot of lyrics. But I kind of liked the older, kind of get right to the point of the song. I always think about the song Jump, and basically just to sing, I get up and nothing gets me down. That's hooked you in right from the beginning. The new album didn't really have those right from the beginning kind of hooks. But again, like I said, I put that thing in my CD player in my truck, and I forced myself to listen to it. I just left it in there, and it got better and better. And this drummer that I was jamming with at the time, this was like 5 years ago, huge Van Halen fan. same thing. We would talk about outer space, and we'd talk about the different tunes on that album. And it's a great album. Stay Frosty, killer song, kind of like their new rendition of Ice Cream Man. I kind of figured it that way. So, yeah, Van Halen, man, great band, great band. Again, if the only thing that I would have liked to have heard on the new album is just maybe just hire Michael Anthony to sing background vocals on a half a dozen of the tunes, and the magic would have been in that album. The guitar playing was phenomenal. The drums were phenomenal. Dave was trying to overdo it a little bit, but he had his moments in that song. It still gives you that old Van Halen feeling, the chills that you got when you'd hear those old songs. And so I do like the album, and because I forced myself to listen to it, I put it on every once in a while, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's good stuff. I kind of like it. You know, Dave was a fun guy. I went out to the US Festival, I saw him, and he was a lot of fun, but he sort of, you know, he'd get drunk, he'd goof around a little bit, and I always kind of wished that he would more or less just stand there and sing the songs to his best ability and try to sound like the record. So I went and saw this tour, whenever it was, like 4 or 5 years ago. And he would dance around, and he's putting on a show to the very best of his ability. And if you get past the idea, Dave's not going to sound like the album. He's not going to do it. You can't force him to do it. He's his own person. This is how he wants to do it. He became in the biggest band. You know, we didn't tell him how to become the biggest band in the world back in the 80s. We've got no room to tell him how to act now. So you just got to get past the fact Dave's not going to sing the songs like he did on the album 40 years ago. So if you do that, you put that in your mind, then you say, oh, okay, cool. You know, you still love it. But great album. I can't say it enough. I wish the band was together now. I'd love to see the band get back together. I'd love to see Michael Anthony back in the band because he sings. His background vocals made the band for me. And Wolfie, I know he's young. Put an opening band together, have Wolfie, call it Wolfie Van Halen. The crowd would love to see Wolfie playing a gig, opening for these guys. And the audience would support it. The audience would buy all his albums. Wolfie, put a band together with your 30-year-old guys, and you'll sell a ton of albums. Every Van Halen fan will buy your record. I don't know, just call it Wolfie Van Halen or Wolfgang Van Halen. I'm not sure. I'm probably the one without the Wolfgang knowledge right now, but he probably has an album out. But I'd love to see the band. It's their 40th anniversary. Get the band together, guys. Go out and play. Go do another US tour. You know, have some fun with us. All right. There you got it, guys. Thanks a lot for watching.